was 19 the night everything began to unravel, though sometimes I think it might have started hours earlier, maybe even days, and I just wasn't paying attention. Memory doesn't cooperate with logic. It clings to fragments, like a handful of broken glass, sharp edges but no whole picture. And yet some pieces are too vivid to ever fade, the ones that cut deepest. The smell of cold grease on my Domino's uniform, the hiss of neon buzzing in the night, the sensation that someone's eyes followed me even when no one was there. That night I clocked out late. The ovens had finally cooled, and the store had gone from the chaos of a dinner rush to the silence of mop water sloshing across tile. Maya was still wiping down counters when I untied my apron. We'd worked together for almost 2 years, and she could tell when I was dragging. "You walking again?" she asked, glancing at the clock, then at me. Her hair was in its usual messy bun, damp strands stuck to her forehead. She pulled her hoodie tight, like even inside she felt the night pressing closer. "Yeah," I said, pretending not to care. She frowned. "You really need a car, Lena." "Working on it," I muttered, trying for casual. But she wasn't wrong. 3 miles on foot was nothing in daylight, but after dark it felt like crossing into another country, one where shadows were thicker and rules bent. Her boyfriend's truck idled outside, headlights cutting across the glass. She hugged me quickly before jogging off, leaving me with the hum of the soda cooler and the faint smell of bleach. I slung my backpack over one shoulder, pushed open the side door, and stepped into the chill. The parking lot was nearly empty, just Maya's boyfriend's truck rolling out, a couple of cars at the far end, and one I hadn't noticed when we came out earlier. Dark, parked crooked across 2 spaces, headlights off. I only saw the faint outline of it because the Domino's sign flickered above, its neon bleeding into the windshield. I stood there too long, staring. The driver's seat was shadowed, maybe empty, maybe not. My pulse flickered faster. I told myself it was nothing, just someone waiting, maybe a friend running late. Still, when I started walking, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes tracking me. The car didn't start. The lot went quiet again. Town was hushed, the kind of silence that felt staged, like everyone had left the set of a play and I was wandering through the props. A vending machine buzzed outside the grocery store. Wind rattled a loose sign at the gas station. My sneakers scraped the pavement. After a block, I glanced back. The car from Domino's had rolled onto the street. Its headlights stayed off. It coasted slowly like it didn't want to be noticed. I froze mid-step. Then a delivery van turned onto the cross street, and in that instant the dark car pulled to the curb and went still. By the time I blinked, it was gone. I walked faster. My backpack bounced against my side, and the can of pepper spray dug into my hip. I told myself I was imagining things. I'd been working too much, not sleeping enough, stress bleeding into paranoia. 10 minutes later, I reached the mouth of Maple Creek Road. The woods stretched ahead like a black throat swallowing. The stars. Pines crowded close, branches knitting together to blot out the sky. During the day, it could be pretty, fog curling low over the ground like breath, but at night it felt wrong, as though I was trespassing somewhere I wasn't meant to be. I gripped my phone tighter, thumb ready on the flashlight. The beam swung ahead in shaky arcs as I stepped onto the shoulder. Gravel crunched. The ditch yawned steeply at my side, every sound magnified, the whisper of wind through needles, the pulse of blood in my ears. I tried to breathe evenly, but every inhale carried the resinous tang of pine and something else beneath it, damp and metallic like rusted iron. Half a mile in, I heard it. A rustle, subtle but deliberate, like weight pressing into leaves. I froze, swinging the light toward the tree line. Nothing, just shadows, bark, branches reaching like fingers. Probably a deer. My breath fogged out, shaky. Except then a small rock skipped across the road, bouncing twice before settling 2 feet in front of me. My chest tightened. I swung the light back, and that's when I saw him. A man, 20 feet back between the pines, his outline sharp against the dark, clothes blending into shadows, his arm lifted. He was waving, Slow, deliberate, mockingly casual. Hey, do you need something?" The words left my mouth before I could stop them. My voice cracked. The reply came low, sharp, like a whisper strained to carry. "Hey, come over here. I want to show you something." Every nerve in my body screamed no. I can't. I need to get home. It'll only take a second." The whisper was harsher now, yet oddly familiar, as though layered with my own voice, distorted through static. "I really need your help." My mom's voice echoed in my head. "Don't stop for strangers in the dark. Don't stop." But something in his tone clawed at me, pleading, desperate. "Human," I heard myself say. "Fine, just a minute. That's all it'll take." The gravel ground under my shoes as I stepped off the road. The flashlight trembled in my hand. My shadow stretched jagged and thin across the trees. The man didn't move until I was nearly beside him. Then he pointed deeper into the woods. "There, look." I followed his gesture. That's when I saw it. A pit, a wide, dark hole in the earth, too symmetrical to be natural. Dug, prepared. "What is that?" I whispered. "Found it earlier," he said, closer now, breath grazing my ear. "Want to know what's down there? Don't have a light. Shine yours." Something twisted inside me. Every instinct said run, but I leaned forward anyway, arm outstretched, phone light spilling into the dark. I leaned farther, breath caught, and then he shoved me. The world spun. Dirt scraped my palms as I fell. My scream split the night, then cut off as I hit bottom, hard pain lancing up my side. The ground felt soft, damp, spongy. I gasped, dragging in air sharp with earth and something sweet-sick, like rot. Groaning, I lifted my phone. The beam quivered, slicing the dark. And that's when I saw her. A girl, my age, maybe younger. Naked, pale, skin laced with bruises. Her eyes wide open, glassy, unseeing. My blood iced. My stomach lurched. I gagged, bile burning my throat. My hand shook so violently the light flickered across the walls of the pit. Claw marks scored deep into the dirt, signs of struggle. Fingernails broken and left behind. Above me, his silhouette framed against the rim. I shouted, voice cracking, "What the hell is this?" He didn't answer. His shadow tilted once, then he was gone. I don't know how long. I was down there. Minutes, hours. My phone battery bled out fast, the percentage dropping like water through a sieve. I tried climbing, my fingers clawing at the dirt. The walls crumbled, collapsing under my weight. I fell back again and again, skin peeling, nails bending. My breath came ragged, each inhale sharper, carrying the stench of death that seemed to thicken with every second. Sometimes I swore I heard her breathing, a faint rasp beside me, though when I turned, her chest was still. Sometimes I thought she whispered my name, Lena, my own voice echoing back at me, warped, hungry. Panic carved me hollow. My chest convulsed with sobs I tried to swallow, afraid he'd hear me, come back, finish what he started. My throat was raw, my hands bled. My body trembled from cold that seemed to seep through the soil itself, climbing into my bones. Finally, after what felt like forever, I hooked one wrist against a stubborn root and dragged myself upward, clawing until my arms shook near collapse. My knees scraped raw, skin splitting. But somehow I hauled over the edge. I collapsed onto the forest floor, face pressed into pine needles, lungs heaving like I'd surfaced from drowning. The woods were silent. Too silent. Not even crickets, now. Not even wind. Just my heart slamming so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs from the inside. I staggered to my feet, stumbling toward the road. My body wouldn't move right, like my limbs belonged to someone else. My phone battery blinked at 1%. The beam faltered, dimmed, died. I was left in blackness so complete it felt solid. Every step I took, I imagined his hand catching my shoulder, dragging me backward. Every sound, a twig snapping, the rush of my own breath was him. Always him, When the trees finally broke and I hit asphalt, I sobbed. Not loud, but helpless. Pathetic sobs I couldn't stop. My legs carried me in jerks and staggers, checking over my shoulder every few feet. The ditch seemed deeper, the night colder. My backpack felt heavier, dragging me toward the earth. I whispered to myself just to hear another voice. Keep going. Keep going. Don't look back. By the time my house came into view, porch light glowing, soft and ordinary, I felt shredded. My clothes were streaked with mud, my hands bled, my throat was sandpaper. I collapsed onto the steps before I could even turn the knob. I didn't wake my parents. I didn't call the police. I only called Ryan, my closest friend, and when he picked up groggy, I whispered through trembling lips. I saw something I can't unsee. He begged for details, I gave none. Just made him swear secrecy. He did. And still, the silence that followed was worse than noise. For days I avoided Maple Creek Road. For nights, I barely slept. When I checked the news, I needed to see her face, some explanation, some proof. But there was nothing. No missing person, no investigation, no body. Like she'd never existed at all. Like the pit wasn't real. But I know what I saw. I know the dirt under my nails, the smell in my lungs, the bruises across my skin. I know his whisper wasn't just in my head. And worse, sometimes now when I'm alone, I hear it again. Not behind me, not in front. Inside. Come over here. I want to show you something. The world was silent when I finally opened my eyes again, and for a fleeting second, I thought maybe I had died. The air was wet against my face, a heavy mist seeping through my clothes, chilling me straight through to my skin. My ears rang in an unnatural hum, and it took me a few moments to realize it wasn't silence I was hearing, but the absence of anything alive. No insects, no rustle of trees, no wind. Just the dull ache of my heartbeat, pumping like it was trying to remind me I was still here. I lay in the pit for what felt like hours but could only have been minutes. The walls rose on either side of me, dirt crumbling whenever I tried to push myself up. My nails dug furrows into the earth, caked with mud and blood. The man's whisper still clung to my skin. Not words now, just a pressure, a memory that refused to let go. I wanted to believe he was gone, that maybe he'd gotten bored and wandered away, but every nerve in me screamed he was still close. I tried to climb once, slipped, and landed hard on my elbow. The pain jolted up my arm, a white flash across my vision. I bit my lip until I tasted iron and tried again. My shoes scraped, filled with mud, making the climb harder. I wanted to cry but forced it down. If he was still watching, I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Finally, with a desperate heave, my fingers caught on a root near the top. It was slick, bending under my weight, but I pulled like my life depended on it, because it did. My knees banged against the dirt wall, skin tearing, but I ignored it. Inch by inch, I dragged myself up until I collapsed on the ground above, gasping, clutching the earth like I needed to hold on to something real. I lay there listening. Nothing. Just the emptiness of the woods pressing in around me. My chest heaved, breath steaming in the cold, and I tried to steady myself enough to move. My ankle throbbed with every shift, probably sprained. But I couldn't stay here. The trees loomed like silhouettes, leaning closer, whispering. I knew it was just wind, or maybe not, but my mind twisted every sound into him. Dragging myself upright, I limped forward. The trail I had come from was somewhere behind me. But the woods all looked the same now, dark trunks, silver fog clinging low to the ground. I didn't trust my sense of direction anymore. Every time I thought I saw an opening, it led me deeper into the forest's throat. And then I heard it again. That voice. Low, curling around me like smoke. Only this time it didn't sound like him. It sounded like me. A warped, broken version of my own voice, whispering back my thoughts before I could even form them. You won't make it out. You belong here now. I clutched my head, nails digging into my scalp, trying to drown it out. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up, I hissed, but it only grew louder, overlapping itself like standing between two mirrors reflecting into infinity. My breaths came short, panic clawing at my chest, until I stumbled into a clearing. The moon broke through the clouds just enough to light the ground, and I froze, a pile of stones, neatly stacked in a circle like a crude altar. On top of it sat a scrap of cardboard, dark with smudged ink. My stomach dropped before I even picked it up. In jagged letters it read, "I saw you leave Domino's." The cardboard shook in my hands. I couldn't breathe. My mind screamed at me to drop it, to run, but my body locked up, staring at those words. He wasn't random. He had chosen me. He had watched me. For how long? How many nights had I walked to work, head down, thinking I was invisible in the dark? And all this time, he was there. Something cracked in the trees. My head snapped up. A shadow shifted just beyond the clearing, tall, unmoving. My throat closed as I tried to scream, but nothing came out. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, as if waiting for me to bolt so the game could begin again. I ran anyway. Branches whipped against my face, tearing my skin. My lungs burned, each gasp cutting sharper than the last. The woods bent and twisted, but somehow I burst back onto the gravel road. My legs almost gave out with relief, but I forced them forward, limping, half running, half crawling down the endless stretch. Every few steps I glanced over my shoulder. The road behind me was empty, but that didn't mean anything. He could be there, just out of sight, letting me burn myself out. My breath echoed too loud in my ears, too close. Sometimes I swore I felt it on the back of my neck, like he was leaning in to whisper again. By the time I stumbled back into the glow of the gas station near my neighborhood, my body was wrecked. My throat was raw, my hands shredded, my clothes soaked in mud and blood. The clerk inside froze when he saw me, rushing to unlock the door, but I slammed past him, collapsing against the counter. My words came out broken, half sobs, half screams. I don't even remember what I told him. Maybe everything, maybe nothing at all. The police came. They searched the woods. They found the pit, the stones, even the cardboard with those words on it. But no man, no footprints, no sign anyone had been there but me. One officer even suggested maybe I had done it myself, like some kind of breakdown. I hated him for saying it, but a part of me wondered if he was right, because the whisper didn't stop. Weeks turned into months. My body healed, but my mind didn't. At night, when everything was quiet, I heard him. Sometimes it was his voice, low and mocking. Other times it was my own, twisted and hollow, feeding me back my worst fears. I quit Domino's, couldn't walk past that stretch of road again. Therapy helped a little, but the doubt lingered. Was he real? Or had I dragged myself into madness that night? I tried to move on, tried to rebuild some semblance of normal. For a while it worked. Until tonight, it's been 3 years. I was leaving the grocery store, pushing a cart across the parking lot when I felt it. That prickling at the back of my neck, the one I swore I'd never ignore again. I turned, and there he was, leaning against a car, hands in his pockets, watching me with a casual tilt of his head. Older maybe, or maybe just more familiar now. But it was him. I know it. And when our eyes met, he didn't smile, didn't speak. He just gave the smallest, slowest nod, like we shared a secret no one else could ever understand, and then he was gone. I blinked, and the space was empty, but the whisper was back, clearer than ever, and it sounded like home. The first thing I remember is the sound, the steady scrape of chairs against tile after closing, the muted clink of silverware, the faint hum of refrigeration units settling into their night rhythm. It was routine, harmless, the sort of white noise that filled the end of every shift. But that night, something about it felt wrong, too loud and too quiet at the same time, like every ordinary sound was being echoed by something invisible, listening just a little too closely. I was 17, and back then that pizza place was my whole world. My first job, my first taste of independence, My first glimpse of how strange people can become when forced into one room night after night with grease under their nails and laughter on their tongues. I liked the place, though. Loved it, even. The cracked neon sign outside flickered in rhythms no one ever bothered to fix. The walls smelled like baked dough, tomato sauce, and ammonia from constant mopping. The owner, Mrs. Delaney, ran the kitchen like a general, but always made sure there were free breadsticks for us at the end of the night. And then there was Brittany. Brit. She was my age, 17, but somehow she seemed older, fearless, sharp, with a smile that lingered long after the sound of it died. She was a waitress, quick on her feet, joking with customers as if she'd been born carrying a tray of sodas. Everyone loved her, and I wasn't immune. I worked prep, bussing, cleanup. She worked the floor. But we crossed paths constantly, and more often than not, we ended up leaving together at the end of the shift. She didn't have a car, didn't even own a bike. Most nights she walked, her purse slung over her shoulder, carrying the weight of pepper spray and a little folding knife that she once showed me behind the counter. "It's pathetic, I know," she said, flipping it open with mock drama. "This thing couldn't cut an apple, but hey, better than nothing, right?" I laughed, because that's what you do when a girl like Brit shows you something meant to make her feel brave. But something inside me recoiled. The knife looked more like a toy than protection. The pepper spray felt like a promise she'd never have to keep. We usually closed around 10, sometimes later. That Friday, we'd run over. Midnight cleanup. Stacks of plates, buckets of soapy water catching the fluorescent lights in trembling ripples. By the time the last chair was flipped onto its table, it was just me, Brit, and Mrs. Delaney, back in the office counting receipts by hand. I had ridden my bike that day. Brit had walked, and as usual, she hadn't arranged a ride home. The air outside was surprisingly warm for early spring, the kind of air that sticks to your skin and makes every shadow feel heavier. "You should wait," Mrs. Delaney said. "I'll drive you in an hour, once I'm done balancing this mess." But Brit only shook her head, brushing crumbs from her apron. "Nah, I'll hitch a ride. Someone will stop." The way she said it, so casual, like daring the world to prove her wrong, made my stomach tighten. I tried to change her mind. "You really shouldn't. I'll wait with you, or hell, you can sit on my handlebars and I'll pedal you home." She laughed at that, a bright, reckless sound in the dark parking lot. "Please, you'd crash us into a ditch in 2 seconds." We stood there under the buzzing neon sign, her arms folded, my bike leaning against the wall. She teased me about scaring off potential rides. "If people see you with me, they'll think I already have someone. Guys are more likely to stop if I'm alone." The words didn't feel right, even though she was joking. There was a sharpness beneath them, like broken glass under sugar. We said goodbye. She walked off down the street, her figure shrinking between the pools of light from the lamps, her ponytail swinging with each step. I watched until I couldn't anymore, until the darkness folded her away. Then I got on my bike and rode in, the opposite direction, my wheels rattling over cracked asphalt, my chest oddly heavy. I didn't know that was the last time I'd ever see her alive. On Monday, I showed up for my shift at 6 sharp, as always. The ovens were already heating, the smell of yeast and garlic filling the kitchen. I tied my apron, washed my hands, and waited for Brit to blow through the door like she always did, laughing, apologizing for being late, tossing her hair back. But she didn't. By 7, unease had sprouted in my chest. By 8, it had rooted deep enough to steal my appetite. By 9, I could barely concentrate on wiping tables. Brit never missed work. That truth repeated in my head like a clock ticking too loud. When her mother came storming into the restaurant 2 days later, pale and frantic, I felt the air rip out of the room. Her voice was cracked from crying. "Have you seen my daughter? Brittany hasn't come home since Friday. She didn't call. I froze. The words slammed into me like a fist. The kitchen went quiet. The fryers still hissed. The ovens still roared. But everything inside me went still. The police arrived not long after. 2 officers, notepad and pen, polite but sharp-eyed. They asked where I'd been Friday, what I'd seen, what time I'd left. I told them. I told them about the parking lot, about my bike, about Britt's laugh as she walked away. "So you were the last person to see her?" one of them asked, his pen hovering. The words settled on me like a stone. The last person to see her. They spoke to Mrs. Delaney too. She confirmed what I said. They took notes. They left. But the weight of their eyes lingered long after. My co-workers weren't kind. Kitchen humor has a way of curdling when fear seeps in. They started joking about me being the killer, whispering to waitresses not to get too close, laughing behind their hands. I tried to ignore it, but it gnawed at me, every word sharpening the edges of my nerves. I was 17, awkward, nervous, and now branded as the last one to see Britt. One night, after too many taunts, I snapped. One of the guys smirked at me, tossing dough in the air. "Where'd you bury the body, huh? Out in the woods? Bet you." "No." The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. "At the bottom of the damn lake. Want to join her?" Silence dropped like a curtain. Every head turned. The air went electric, sharp enough to cut. I don't know why I said it. The words didn't even feel like mine. They slipped out. Too precise, too heavy. And then the laughter exploded. Nervous, sharp, almost relieved. But I couldn't shake, the way my stomach twisted like I'd just confessed to something I didn't understand. 2 days later, her body was found, in the reservoir, weighted with rocks. Her throat cut. My words had been more than a joke. They had been exact. The police came back, harder this time. Questions stacked on questions. My parents sat beside me, pale and stiff, while the detectives leaned in, eyes narrowing. "How did you know about the reservoir?" I didn't. I swear, I didn't. But in the quiet of my own mind, I wasn't so sure. Because sometimes I remembered saying it before the cops told me where she was found. And sometimes I remembered after. The memory shifted like water. Never solid, never certain. Should have felt relief when they caught the man, a drifter already suspected in another case. He confessed. He described what he did to her. He even gave them details no one else could know. But I didn't feel relief. Because every time I closed my eyes, I still saw Britt's silhouette walking into the dark. And every time I looked in, a mirror, I half expected to see her standing behind me, smiling that same smile, but sharper, darker, as though she knew something I didn't. Sometimes I hear her voice, low, almost tender, saying, "You'll just scare them off." I thought the arrest would end it. That once the man confessed, once the newspapers printed his mugshot, once the police declared the case solved, the knots in my stomach would loosen. But they didn't. If anything, they pulled tighter, pulling me inward until I couldn't tell, where the world ended and my thoughts began. Everyone at the restaurant moved on faster than I could. The jokes stopped, replaced by pitying glances and awkward silence. Mrs. Delaney patted my shoulder once and said, "It's over now, honey. Time to let it go." But her eyes slid away from mine when she said it, like she didn't fully believe herself. I couldn't let it go. Not when I could still smell Britt's perfume lingering in the corners of the restaurant, faint, sweet, cloying, when no one else seemed to notice. Not when I kept seeing her reflection in the glass doors long after closing, her lips moving as though she were trying to tell me something I couldn't hear. And not when the words I'd spoken that night, the words I swore weren't mine, still echoed in my head, heavy and cold. At the bottom of the damn lake. How had I said it? Why had I said it? Why did I know? The police cleared me, but I couldn't clear myself. I began avoiding the late shift, volunteering for morning prep instead. The restaurant looked different in the daylight, less haunted somehow, the shadows cut back by sunbeams through greasy windows. But night always came again, and with it came the dread. At home, sleep no longer gave me rest. I'd wake drenched in sweat, my sheets twisted, my heart pounding. The dreams were always the same. Britt walking ahead of me down a road lined with dead trees, her figure shrinking, swallowed by shadow. No matter how fast I ran, I couldn't catch her. And then she would turn, her face pale, her lips moving, in silence. The silence was worse than any scream. One night I woke to the sound of tapping on my window. My heart lurched as I sat up, the room heavy with darkness. The tapping continued, rhythmic, patient, as though whoever or whatever it was had all the time in the world. I forced myself to look. There was nothing, just the night pressing against the glass, my own reflection pale and wide-eyed. But when I leaned closer, I thought I saw another reflection layered beneath mine, a flicker of long hair, the faintest curve of a smile. I stumbled back so hard I hit my dresser. The sound of the tapping stopped instantly, leaving only the ringing in my ears. The next morning there were faint streaks on the glass, like handprints smudged by water. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. The weeks dragged on. People stopped talking about Britt as much. The trial moved forward. The killer's name was whispered in town like poison, but her name, the one that should have mattered, was fading. I couldn't let it fade. I started walking the route she would have taken that night, tracing her steps in the dark. Past the shuttered gas station, past the overgrown lot, past the stretch of road where the streetlights flickered and went out entirely. I told myself I was looking for something the police missed, but really I think I was waiting. For her, for a sign, for proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Some nights, I swore I heard her footsteps behind me. Not echoes of my own, but a second. Rhythm, lighter, quicker, keeping pace. When I stopped, the sound stopped. When I turned, there was nothing, but the feeling of being watched never left. At the restaurant, it got worse. I'd be wiping down tables and catch movement in the corner of my eye. Britt ducking into the kitchen, her ponytail swinging. I'd rush after her, heart pounding, only to find the kitchen empty, the ovens cold. I heard her laugh once, faint but unmistakable, curling through the air like smoke. The sound froze me in place, my rag dripping onto the floor, my whole body prickling with a mix of terror and longing. She was still there. She hadn't left me. But if that was true, what did she want? I went to her memorial. I shouldn't have. I sat in the back silent as her friends and family cried. I couldn't cry. I felt like I wasn't allowed, like my tears would be a lie, an intrusion. I felt eyes on me the whole time, though no one turned to look. When her mother passed by me afterward, her face drawn and hollow, she didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance my way. But as she moved past, I thought I heard her whisper, "You should have walked her home." I know she didn't say it. Her lips didn't move, but I heard it all the same, sharp and cold, slicing through me. That night I dreamed of Britt again. Only this time, when she turned toward me on that endless road, her lips moved with words I could finally hear. "You'll just scare them off." And then she laughed, but the laugh was wrong, low, echoing, stretched thin until it became a scream. I stopped going to work. Mrs. Delaney called once, left a message saying I could come back anytime. I didn't. I couldn't walk into that building again without feeling Britt's presence in every shadow, every corner. But avoiding the restaurant didn't help, because it wasn't the restaurant that was haunted. It was me. I began writing everything down, trying to pin the memories like butterflies to a board. What I'd said, what I'd seen, what I'd dreamed. But the more I wrote, the more the lines blurred. I couldn't tell which words were mine and which were hers. Sometimes I'd wake to find sentences in my notebook I didn't remember writing. "At the bottom of the damn lake. You'll just scare them off. You were the last one." The handwriting looked like mine, but different. Tighter, sharper, like someone holding my hand had forced the pen across the page. I started locking the notebook in a drawer, but even then, sometimes I'd wake to find it open on my desk, the pen lying across its pages. One night I dreamed I was back in the parking lot, standing with Britt under the neon glow. Only this time she wasn't laughing. Her eyes were dark, her smile sharp. "You let me go," she said. "You watched me walk away." "I tried to stop you," I whispered. She tilted her head. "Did you?" Her knife glinted in her hand, but she didn't raise it. She only held it out, the blade pointing toward me. I woke with my sheets twisted around me, my skin cold with sweat. On my desk, the knife sat gleaming, the exact little folding blade she'd shown me once, the one I knew had been buried with her. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. When I finally blinked, it was gone. The desk was empty, but the smell of her perfume lingered in the air, so strong it made me gag. I'm older now, but I haven't escaped. I see her in mirrors, in windows, in the shine of dark water. Her reflection is always there behind mine, smiling, waiting. And sometimes, late at night, I hear her voice whispering from the corner of my room. You were the last one to see me. Other times she says nothing at all. She only laughs, and the laugh is mine. I don't know if she's haunting me or if she ever really left that night or if something inside me, something darker, took her place. All I know is this. I didn't kill her, but I'm not sure I can prove it to myself. And maybe that's the worst part. Because what if the reason I knew about the lake wasn't supernatural at all? What if the truth has been hiding in me all along, waiting, whispering, laughing? What if I'm the ghost? I was 17 the summer. The cracks in my mind stopped being cracks and started becoming the only thing I could see. People like to say a memory is a snapshot, sharp and frozen, but mine never holds still. They ripple like heat over asphalt, bending straight lines, making me question what was really there in the first place. The summer of 1976 was supposed to be the happiest of my life, and maybe it was, in flashes. But when I close my eyes now, I can't tell if what I'm remembering is real or if I've been living inside that night ever since. I tell myself the cracks had been there all along. That August, Havli was suffocating. It always smelled faintly, of rust and hot metal from the steel mills. But in the dead of summer, the air was so heavy it felt alive, pressing on your chest, sticking in your throat. The mills glowed at night, red light staining the horizon, while moths burned themselves out against buzzing street lamps. It wasn't a safe town, not by anyone's measure, but for kids like me, Mark, and Eddie, it was the only world we knew. We learned which blocks carried danger like a disease and which alleys spit you out unharmed. We trusted in those rules the way churchgoers trust in scripture. That night had been perfect. We had saved every dime from bagging groceries and sweeping gas station floors for tickets to a band we swore would change our lives. The concert was sweat and noise and light, so much of it that for hours afterward the world still seemed to pulse with sound. Eddie laughed on the train ride back, his voice hoarse, his smile wild. If I die tomorrow, bury me with that memory, he said. But I remember the way his words made something shift inside me like a tiny fracture widening. Even then, before anything happened, the air felt wrong. Not just heavy, but watchful. It was close to 12:15 a.m. when we stepped off the train into Havli's empty streets. The lights at the intersection flicked lazily from green to red with no cars to command. Our sneakers scuffed the cracked pavement, the only sound against the hum of distant machinery. That's when we saw it. A brown station wagon rolled into the intersection and stopped dead center. The headlights were off, but the engine hummed in a low, steady growl. Rust had eaten the fenders, one hubcap was missing, and the bumper sagged like a sneer. At first, I thought it was just someone lost. People got turned around in Havli all the time. Then the driver's window rolled down with a squeal. He leaned out, elbows casual, head tilted. His hair was long, greasy, pasted to his temples with sweat. His face was almost ordinary. Too ordinary. The kind of face that disappears the second you look away, except something about it clung. His smile was thin, stretched too far. Wrong. For one weightless moment I thought he would ask for directions. Instead, he lifted his hand. The pistol gleamed in the dim light. "Which one of you wants it first?" he asked. Calm, conversational, like he was offering us candy. I don't know which one of us moved first. Eddie's Coke bottle slipped from his fingers and shattered. Mark let out a breath like he'd been punched. My lips formed a single word. Run! Though it came out more like air than sound. And then all three of us bolted, Our sneakers hammered the pavement. Behind us, the night cracked open with gunfire. One shot, then two, then three. The echoes rang against buildings, ricocheting off dark windows. My lungs burned, my throat clawed for air, every step bracing for the punch of a bullet in my back. We dove into bushes near the park, branches tearing at our arms. I crouched, heart rattling against my ribs. When I dared to glance back, the intersection was empty. The wagon was gone. Relief came thin and fragile, already dissolving. We thought we'd shaken him. But Havley wasn't that big. We cut down the gravel road behind the park, thinking we could slip home without looping back to Lincoln. Our footsteps crunched loud in the silence. Nobody spoke, but every few seconds I caught the whites of Mark's or Eddie's eyes turning over shoulders, checking shadows. And then I saw it, parked under a sycamore at the far end of the road. Its shape unmistakable even in shadow, the same dented bumper, the same missing hubcap, the station wagon. "Shit," I whispered, though my voice didn't feel like it belonged to me. My throat had gone bone dry, as if in response the headlights snapped on, blinding us. The engine roared, mocking, echoing through the quiet neighborhood. "He knew we'd come this way," Eddie whispered. His voice was trembling, cracked. But in my ears it sounded doubled, like someone else was whispering it with him. Someone just behind me. Someone who sounded like me. We scrambled over the nearest fence, splinters digging into our palms, crashing into a stranger's backyard. The wagon surged forward down the gravel. We ran blindly, crashing through hedges, vaulting fences, setting dogs barking. Once, as I scrambled up a chain link, I saw it tear down the parallel street, headlights sweeping like searchlights. Too fast. Too precise. That was when the thought sank in. He wasn't chasing us. He was hurting us. Every corner we turned, he was already there. On Willow Lane, on Maple. Each time the car appeared just ahead, like it had been waiting. Too perfect, too knowing. "He knows the streets," I gasped, though the words felt wrong in my mouth. My lips moved, but the sound came from somewhere else, somewhere behind my ear. By the time we tumbled over a barbed wire fence into a paddock, skin torn and bleeding, the wagon was circling again. Its headlights swept the open field, white beams combing the dark like fingers. We crouched in the muck, trembling. The smell of manure clung to my tongue. For 15 minutes, maybe more, we stayed, like that. My heart beat so hard it seemed like the earth should have felt it. And then silence. The wagon's engine faded. By 2:30, we staggered back onto familiar streets, every passing headlight making us flinch, waiting for the station wagon to reappear. But it never did. At 3 a.m. when we finally reached home, parents scolded, porch lights flicked on, doors closed. The world returned to normal, except it didn't. Not for me, because something followed. A week later, an elderly woman was shot walking home from bingo. No robbery, no motive, just a bullet in the dark. Witnesses described a brown station wagon, but that wasn't what haunted me most. What haunted me was the way the wagon had always known. The way it turned before we did, cut us off with impossible precision, anticipated shortcuts we hadn't taken in years. It didn't just chase us. It guided us, and sometimes when I close my eyes I remember his face differently. Not just to strangers, not older, not unknown, but familiar, blurred like an unfinished sketch, as if it could have been anyone, as if it could have been me. The whisper comes back then, clear and close behind my ear. "Run." Not his voice. Mine. Even now, all these years later, my chest seizes when I hear a car idle outside my window in the dark hours. Not because I think he's back, not because I think I ever escaped, but because I'm not sure I ever left that road. Sometimes you escape, but you never really get away. I never trusted silence, not really. People talk about silence like it's peace, like it's the soft settling of dust in a sunlit room, or the hush of a church before a hymn. But silence has always carried weight for me. The kind that presses down until it feels like my own heart is screaming to fill the void. I've always felt there's something living inside silence, something waiting. That probably sounds strange, maybe dramatic, but I know what I'm talking about. Because once, long ago, when I was just a 21-year-old student in Newcastle, I learned exactly what silence can hide. On paper, my life was ordinary then. I studied English Lit, lived in a cramped flat above a laundrette with 2 other girls, both of them obsessed with half-burned toast, cheap cider, and boyfriends who never stayed the night. I worked late shifts at a nightclub called the Black Swan, the kind of place hidden in a side street just off Clayton Road, where walls smelled like smoke no matter how much bleach you threw at them, and sticky floors were the only thing holding some customers upright. The Swan was the last stop in the city. When the trendy clubs closed and the bars threw out the stragglers, they came to us. By sunrise, the place was always buzzing with drunks too stubborn or too lost to go home. I liked working there more than I admitted. The chaos was bonding, like you were shoulder to shoulder with the world at its rawest. My colleague Jaime and I used to make a game of it. 4 kinds of drunks, he'd say, wiping a glass with his rag. Happy drunks, sad drunks, sleepy drunks, and blackout drunks. He said the last part like a curse, lowering his voice as if the walls might hear. I'd only dealt with a handful in my first few months. The blackout drunks. They weren't what I expected. They didn't stagger or slur. They weren't collapsing in corners. They moved like puppets with invisible strings, eyes glazed like marbles, hollow of anything human. It wasn't just the unpredictability. It was the emptiness. I hated being near them. That Thursday night in late November was quiet, which was unusual. No chaos, no singing, no broken glass. Just a steady trickle of students, shift workers, and lonely men who looked like they'd given up a long time ago. By 5:30, we were nearly done, already imagining our beds. My hands ached from scrubbing the bar and the smell of bleach stung my nose. Jaime was humming off-key, polishing the same pint glass like it might finally turn transparent if he tried hard enough. That's when he walked in. I still remember how the door creaked open, a gust of cold air spilling inside like an unwelcome guest. He looked like he'd come from some construction site. Steel-toe boots, paint-smeared hoodie, work trousers dark with mud. His hair was messy, his face pale, jaw tight. The air around him felt heavy. He didn't stumble or slur when he asked for a pint, so Jaime served him, muttering, "Last one, mate. We're closing in half an hour." The man nodded, expression unreadable, and for 20 minutes he just stood at the bar, drinking in silence. Then without warning, he froze. His pint hovered near his lips, his eyes fixed forward through the shelves of spirits as though he'd spotted something on the other side. But his pupils, God, they were wrong. Glass marbles. Lifeless. I glanced at Jaime. He gave me the tiniest nod, blackout drunk. I edged closer, heart knocking against my ribs. "Sorry, mate, we're closing up, time to head off." The man blinked once, as though he'd come back to himself for half a second. Then he pushed away from the bar, silent, detached. He shuffled to the door, one of the doormen gently steering him outside. It was almost too easy, like the body obeyed while something else had already left. By 6, we were finished and outside, the freezing dawn biting through my coat. Normally, I loved those walks home. 15 minutes through quiet streets, headphones in, city finally hushed after hours of chaos. But that morning, as I zipped up my coat and stepped down the narrow side street, my eyes caught movement. Him, the blackout drunk, was sitting on a low stone wall across the road, hunched, staring at the ground. My breath caught. He looked up and our eyes locked. The same dead marble stare. Slowly, almost too smoothly, he rose and started walking toward me. My gut clenched. I quickened my pace. So did he. Every sound sharpened. The echo of his boots, the icy wind rattling a loose sign, my breath fogging faster and faster. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe he just lived that way. But when I slowed, he slowed. When I sped up, so did he. "Yeah, babe, I'm just heading home now," I muttered into my dead phone, voice trembling but forced into cheeriness. "What? You'll meet me? Perfect. I'll wait here." I prayed he'd hear it. that he'd think twice, but he didn't. His footsteps shadowed mine. By the bus stop, I dropped onto the bench pretending to scroll. He stood a few feet away, just watching, silent. The cold gnawed through my coat, but sweat ran down my back. Finally, headlights cut through the mist, and the bus hissed to a stop. Relief nearly buckled my knees as I climbed on board. I slid into a seat halfway down, forced myself to breathe, safe, safe. But then I heard it, the clink of coins on the tray. I looked up. It was him. He didn't even glance at me. He just shuffled down the aisle and sat directly behind me. So close I could feel the heat of him, my palms slicked with sweat. Every bump of the bus jolted through me like a shock. I stared, out the window, mind racing. If I got off, he'd follow. If I shouted to the driver, he'd still know where I lived. I was trapped. I checked my watch. 7:02. Tesco Express opened at 7. If I timed it right, I could duck inside, find security, find someone real. Stop after stop passed, my chest tightening, air thinning. When my stop arrived, I stood. He stood too. The moment my feet hit the pavement, I crossed the street, nearly, running toward the bright Tesco sign glowing in the mist. The automatic doors slid open, spilling warm fluorescent light over me. Relief nearly made me sob. Please, there's a man following me. He's right behind me. Please, I need somewhere safe. My words tumbled out to the security guard by the tills. His eyes flicked over me, then past me, his jaw tightened. Come with me. Now. He guided me into the small, stale office at the back, the kind where they kept grainy CCTV monitors in a single chair. My whole body shook as I tried to explain, words crashing into each other. He listened, nodded, and said, "Stay here. I'll ring the police." Through the slit window, I saw him, the blackout drunk, standing near the self-checkouts, motionless, eyes fixed on the office door. Waiting. The guard went out, firm voice telling him to leave. He didn't move. 10 minutes crawled past, then the police arrived. Even then, he didn't resist. He let them escort him away like he'd been waiting for this too. I thought that was the end. I told myself I was safe, but it wasn't, not by a long shot. I told myself it was over, that the police would handle him, that he was just some drunk man who picked the wrong person to shadow through the city. But safety doesn't return just because you want it to. That night, when I lay in bed, flatmates snoring in their rooms, the radiator clicking with hollow knocks, I realized safety isn't something anyone else can give you. Once it's broken, it's gone. For weeks, every footstep behind me made my pulse thunder. Every face in a crowd carried a shadow of his. I stopped listening to music on my walks, every sense sharpened, skin prickling like I could feel eyes, even when no one was there. Sometimes I'd spin around, heart in my throat, only to find nothing but mist curling down the pavement. Sleep became a stranger. When I did drift off, I dreamed of him sitting across the road on that stone wall, hunched, waiting. Sometimes in the dream, he didn't move at all. Sometimes he did, unfolding slowly, crossing the street with a blank face and glassy eyes that swallowed the world. I started avoiding the black swan. Called in sick, made excuses, but eventually the rent and bills caught up with me. I went back, the same sticky floors, the same jukebox coughing out tired beats. Jaime noticed the change. "You're jumpy as hell, you know that?" he said one night, tossing a cloth over his shoulder. "I'm fine, just tired." But I wasn't. Every clink of glass made me twitch. Every shadow by the door pulled my eyes. My nerves were strung so tight I thought I might snap. The strange thing was, it wasn't just me. Customers I'd never seen before started showing up. Men with the same empty look. Not drunk, not really, but hollow. I'd catch them standing too still, staring at nothing, until the doorman shuffled them out. Each time, my stomach flipped. Each time I thought of him. One night, scrubbing the bar near close, I caught sight of a reflection in the bottles. Not my own. A pale face, glassy eyes, standing directly behind me. I whipped around. Nothing. Just empty stools, and Jaime humming to himself by the till. My hands shook so bad I spilled bleach down my arm. "You all right?" Jaime asked, but I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up. I started avoiding mirrors after that. Even at home, my flatmates joked about me brushing my teeth with the light off, but I didn't tell them why. I couldn't. How do you explain you're afraid of seeing something that shouldn't be there? It got worse. Late one night, drifting in that fog between waking and sleep, I heard it. The clink of coins hitting metal. Not loud, but deliberate. I froze under my blanket. Slowly, I opened my eyes. At the foot of my bed in the shadowed corner, something glimmered. Two faint reflections catching the light of the street lamp outside. Eyes, marble eyes, watching. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I just lay there, every nerve screaming, until the faint shift of dawn blurred the corner into nothing. But the sound of coins stayed lodged in my ears, echoing. The days blurred. My lectures, my shifts, all meaningless compared to the constant hum of dread crawling under my skin. The city itself seemed changed, quieter, heavier. Streetlights flickered more. The wind carried faint whispers, words I couldn't catch. Even pigeons startled me, wings clapping like warnings. Sometimes I wondered if I'd lost my grip. Trauma, exhaustion, too much caffeine. Maybe it was just me. But then there were moments I couldn't explain, like the bus ride where I swore he was sitting behind me again, the same boots scraping the floor, the same faint smell of earth. But when I turned around, the seat was empty, or the time I walked past a shuttered shop and saw his reflection in the glass, standing at my shoulder, though the pavement was bare. Kaimi noticed the change again. "Look, whatever's eating you, it's getting worse." "You don't understand," I whispered. "He's not gone." Jaime frowned. "The guy from that night? Police dealt with him, you're safe." But his words meant nothing. Safety was a lie. Because every time I was alone, every time silence pressed down, I felt him. Not just following, anymore. Closer. Inside the silence itself. The night it all broke was damp and bone cold. The kind of Newcastle night where the air feels heavy with salt from the sea. My shift ended late. Jaime offered to walk me home, but I waved him off. Some stupid pride told me I had to face the walk alone, prove I wasn't broken. Halfway down the side street, I felt it. Footsteps. I froze. The street was empty. Mist swirling under the lamps. Still, the footsteps echoed, matching mine. Closer. I forced myself forward, pulse hammering. At the corner, I glanced back. He was there, standing under the flickering streetlight, hoodie stained, boots dark with mud. His face was pale, eyes glassy, fixed on me. "What do you want?" My voice cracked, tearing the silence. He didn't answer. He just tilted his head, slow, mechanical, like he was trying to understand the question. Then he stepped forward. I bolted, my lungs burned, breath tearing my throat. The footsteps followed, steady, unhurried. No matter how fast I ran, they didn't falter. I reached my flat, fumbling keys, shoving the door shut behind me. My flatmates startled awake as I locked it, bolting every latch. They asked what happened, voices muffled. I couldn't answer. All I could do was press my ear to the wood, listening. Silence. Then faint. Coins clinking on the other side of the door. I broke. My body shook so violently I thought I might fracture. My flatmates tried to calm me, but I saw it in their eyes. They thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. But the sounds never stopped. Every night some variation. Footsteps. Coins. A knock too soft to be real. Sometimes I swore I heard breathing at my window, though we lived 2 floors up. The line between waking and dreaming blurred. I'd wake with my sheets damp from sweat, the smell of earth in my room. Once, I woke with dirt under my nails. I hadn't been outside. By then, I knew the truth, or at least the truth as I felt it. That man hadn't followed me home. He'd brought something else with him, something hollow, something that wore his body like a mask, something that never let go. Once it found you, Even now, all these years later, I can feel it. In the spaces between sounds. In the moments just before sleep. In the way silence weighs too heavy, like a presence pressing down. People laugh about blackout drunks. They don't know. They don't know what it looks like when the body's still, moving but no one's at the wheel. They don't know how close I came to being someone who never made it home, or maybe I never did. Maybe part of me is still out there walking those streets, chased by footsteps that will never stop. And when I find myself glancing over my shoulder on a dead quiet night, breath quickening at nothing, I ask the same question that has followed me since that morning at Tesco. What if the car was never empty? What if someone else was always at the wheel? I never liked the way the sea smelled at night. People pretend it's bracing, fresh, even romantic, but to me it always carried something metallic beneath the salt, like iron scraped raw. It was the kind of smell that didn't just sit in your nose. It sank into your teeth, your skin, and left you tasting it long after. That was the first thing I noticed when I stepped out of the Kingfisher Arms on that cold Friday last autumn. The shift had clung to me, beer sticky on my skin, hair plastered to my forehead with sweat, my body aching from bending and lifting and smiling too long. I wanted nothing more than my flat above the bakery, a shower, and sleep. But the air carried that smell, thick and damp, a warning I tried to ignore. Back in 2020, when I stuffed my life into cardboard boxes and left Glasgow, I told myself I was escaping. The city had ground me down with sirens, strangers screaming at 3 hour in the morning. The constant press of shoulders always braced for someone to snap. I thought Levenford, with its bakery smells and polite nods from strangers, would be enough to uncoil me. At 25, I was small, restless, worn thin. Now at 29, I still hunched my shoulders when I walked home at night. Keys between my fingers the way every woman I know has been taught. That Friday, Jenny and I finally locked up close to midnight, laughter spilling from her as she told me about some boy texting her too much. At the corner, she turned right, I turned left, and suddenly the night grew bigger without her. That was always the hardest moment, when I became the only sound, the only moving thing. My way home stretched about 20 minutes, short in daylight, too long at midnight. I crossed through the co-op car park, my usual shortcut, and the instant my soles touched the tarmac, I felt it, a shift in the air, like I'd walked into a room where someone had just gone silent. 3 cars were parked, nothing odd, but at the far end was a man, dark jacket, cap pulled low. His walk was steady, too steady, each step deliberate. "Stop it, Maggie," I muttered in my head. "Don't spiral, people walk, that's all." Still, my pace slowed, my ears straining for his footsteps, and when I turned onto the main road, there he was again, 40 feet behind, closing. I tested him, crossed the street. He crossed too. The realization landed like cold water in my gut. Not chance. Intent. My hand slid into my bag, fingertips brushing the glass iron brew bottle I'd saved. Heavy, solid. Something. My chest tightened as the lamps stretched long orange, shadows across the pavement. The street ahead was too open, my flat still a mile away. Then his voice. "Hello there. How are you tonight?" Too calm, too close. I kept my eyes ahead. "You heading to work?" "No." The word cracked out sharp and small. "Going home then? Do you live along here?" Every alarm in me screamed. Nobody asks that at midnight unless they mean harm. I stayed silent, gripping the bottle until my palm ached. He edged forward, then slowed, waiting so I'd either walk beside him or lag behind. I lagged. My phone, my last lifeline, was dead when I yanked it from my pocket. My throat closed. That was when I saw the narrow path in the hedge. Instinct shoved me down it, crouching low, swallowed by leaves. My heart battered so loud I thought he'd hear it. I counted breaths, minutes, crouched in the dark. 1, 2, 5. When I peeked through, the road was empty, but I didn't trust empty. I stayed hidden until my legs screamed, then finally crawled home. My flat closed around me. Lock again. Curtains shut. Glass bottle still in my hand, slick with sweat. That should have been the end. But it wasn't, because when I sank onto the couch, the smell of the sea followed me inside. Stronger. Closer. At first it was faint, maybe lingering from outside, but as hours passed it thickened, metallic and wet like brine poured through my walls. The silence inside wasn't silence anymore. It carried a hum, low and tidal, like waves trapped behind plaster. I didn't sleep. Morning stripped it back, to normal, bakery scent rising through the floorboards, the faint chatter of gulls outside. I convinced myself exhaustion had twisted things. That's what stress does. It lies. But the next night walking home, I saw him again. In the car park. Same jacket, same cap. Only this time something was wrong with him. He didn't move, he didn't breathe. His shape shimmered like it was made of shadows and sea foam, edges dissolving, reforming. When a car's headlights swept across the lot, his face turned toward me. His eyes caught the light, not human, not white, but a glint like fish scales, deep underwater. My chest seized. I blinked and the space was empty. That's when I stopped telling myself it was just fear, because fear doesn't make shapes that glisten. Fear doesn't smell like tide water leaking into your lungs. The smell returned, stronger each night. Salt and iron. Sometimes I woke gagging, throat raw, the air thick with brine. My flat creaked, with noises that weren't wood, sloshing like water rising inside the walls. I pressed my ear to the plaster once and I swore I heard a hum, low and endless, as though the sea itself was breathing. People noticed. Jenny said, "You look wrecked, Mags. You seeing ghosts or what?" I laughed, pretended, but her words, rooted. It wasn't a ghost. Ghosts are dead. This thing was alive, patient. The mirror betrayed me first. Brushing my teeth, I saw him reflected over my shoulder. Cap, jacket, clear as day. I spun. Nothing. My toothbrush clattered from my shaking hand. Then the footprint. I woke at 3 a.m. to the smell burning my nose. In the kitchen, a bare footprint glistened on the tile, water dripping into the grout. Not just wet, salt water, sharp enough to sting my skin when I touched it. I jerked my hand back, red welts blooming across my fingertips. That was when I knew. It wasn't me. It was here. I thought of leaving. Glasgow again, or anywhere. But how do you leave something that walks inside your walls? You can't. It wanted me. Not all at once, but piece by piece. First the footsteps, then the smell. Then the sound of water rising where water didn't belong. Sometimes at night I heard it whispering, same words as that first encounter. "Where do you stay?" The words pulsed, liquid, inside my ears until I thought I'd bleed. I shoved my fingers in, but still I heard it. I began to wonder if the man had ever been a man at all. Maybe he was the hook it wore, the shape to draw me close. Maybe the real thing was older, tied to the sea, tied to this town. Maybe when I ducked into that hedge, it marked me. Maybe hiding was the moment I let it in. Now every night the dragging sound grows nearer, like something hauling itself wet across my floorboards. My flat smells like rust, like the ocean pried itself open in my living room. Shadows swell larger than they should. Shapes bend in the corner of my eyes. And sometimes when I look too long, I see the man's figure again, dissolving, reforming. Cap dripping seawater, eyes glinting like scales. "Where do you stay?" It whispers. I try not to answer. I press my fists to my mouth to keep words from spilling out, but I can feel it inside me, tugging, waiting for the moment I slip, and I know now it's not asking where I live, it's asking where I belong. And the truth is simple, terrifying, unavoidable. I belong to the sea. It began almost 3 years ago on a night swollen with heat. The kind of summer night that felt like it wanted to swallow you whole. The sky had dimmed into that bruised purple black, and even though the sun had been down for hours, the pavement still breathed out warmth like a living thing. Every step carried the faint smell of tar and gasoline, and every breath clung heavy in my chest. I was 17 then, caught in the awkward in-between of life. Too old to be a child, too young to be trusted by the world. That was the year I thought I could stand on my own, make decisions like an adult. But I hadn't learned yet that the smallest choice could ripple through everything you were. Everything you thought was safe. That night I'd just finished my shift at Walmart. My vest clung damp to my skin, the collar itching with salt from sweat, the little name tag, Sasha, catching the glow of the store's buzzing lights as I clocked out. I remember the sound of my sneakers squeaking against the polished tile, the hollow echo of my yawn, the automatic doors exhaling warm air into the parking lot. The place looked abandoned, only a few cars scattered under the tall fluorescent poles, the lights flickering faintly as though they were tired too. I pulled out my phone, thumb moving through the routine. Transit app, bus schedule, home. The screen glared back at me, unforgiving. Delayed. Approx. To our ears at first, I laughed. Just a dry, hopeless laugh that cracked in my throat. 2 hours? At 11 at night? That wasn't just inconvenient, it was impossible. I had school the next morning. I needed to shower, eat, sleep. 2 hours meant dragging myself into the next day already broken. The laugh died fast, replaced by a pit in my stomach. My eyes darted across the parking lot, as though a bus might appear anyway, as though the universe might take pity. But nothing moved. No way in hell, I whispered. The sound came out too soft, too thin, lost in the buzzing lamps overhead. So I made a choice. The kind of choice you think is small, but it unravels your life in ways you never see coming. I decided to walk. It wasn't far, 20, maybe 30 minutes if I cut across the right streets. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it was better than waiting. I told myself I was brave enough. And maybe I was. Or maybe bravery and stupidity look the same when you're 17. The first stretch of road was calm. Wide, empty, the streetlights painting pale cones of light that left more shadows than safety. The hum of cicadas filled the trees, their chorus rising and falling like static. I slipped in my earbuds, music wrapping me in the illusion of comfort. It always did. Sound as armor, rhythm as distraction, but illusions crack. The noise reached me slowly, sliding through the seams of my song until I could no longer pretend it was part of the beat. A hum, steady and low, threading into the silence, between drum kicks, an engine. At first I tried to dismiss it. Just a car passing. Just background noise. But the hairs on my arms prickled, and something in me knew better. I tugged one earbud out. The sound thickened immediately, heavy, deliberate. I turned my head. Headlights. A car lingered 20 feet behind me, moving too slowly to be casual, too precise to be chance. Its beams painted the asphalt white, stretching my shadow long and thin ahead of me. My stomach clenched into a knot. My pulse quickened, thudding against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my pride said no. Running made it real. Running made me pray. I forced myself to keep walking, even as the car pulled closer. Then it drew up beside me, window sliding down with a mechanical whine that cut straight into the night. Inside sat a man. His face was blurred by shadow, but I saw the curve of his mouth, smiling. Too wide, too patient. The car was familiar. A 2004 Honda Accord, silver, the kind of detail my brain locked onto because I'd always loved cars. I dreamed of studying mechanics one day, of making a life with grease under my nails and engines in my hands. That night, though, the knowledge felt less like comfort and more like a scar, because now I could name it. Now it was permanent. He lifted his hand, slow, deliberate, and gave me a friendly wave. And because I was raised to be polite, because ignoring him felt impossible, I waved back. That was the mistake. He gestured for me to take out my headphones. Reluctantly, I did. His voice slid out, smooth and practiced. You know, you remind me of someone. What was your name again? The question made my skin crawl. It was too casual, too rehearsed. Still, my lips betrayed me. Sasha. It wasn't a lie, not exactly. My mom had named me Sarah, but I'd gone by Sasha for as long as I could remember. Friends teased me sometimes, calling me Sarah when they wanted to get under my skin. Teachers used it when they wanted to remind me I wasn't grown yet. But I rarely introduced myself that way. Sasha was mine. Sasha was who I was. The man paused. His smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes sharpened like he was filing away the word for later. Then he asked, "Do you know where Water Creek is?" My brows knit. I'd lived in this town my whole life. I knew every block, every shortcut. But Water Creek meant nothing. I shook my head. Sorry, no. He nodded slowly. Too slowly. Then he tried another name, another place I didn't recognize. The itch to run spread through me, tingling down my legs. My stomach knotted tighter, my pulse banging in my ears. I didn't want to talk anymore. I didn't want to be near him. So I lied. Straight for 2 blocks, then left at the highway. He leaned closer, eyes catching the faint spill of the streetlight. Maybe you could get in, show me, I'll pay for your Uber back. The air froze around me. His voice was soft, coaxing, too careful. Like he'd practiced these words before, like he'd said them to others. No, I've got curfew, gotta get home. Come on, just a ride. I'll make it worth your while. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. My legs screamed to run. No, thank you. I forced the words out, sharp, and walked faster. For a moment, silence. Then his voice floated after me, almost tender. Have a good night, Sasha. The way he said my name, it was like a promise. By the time I reached my street, my throat was dry, my skin buzzing with adrenaline. I slipped inside the house, heart pounding. The lights in the living room glowed soft, and my mom was waiting. She wasn't usually awake. This late, she believed in early nights and routines. Seeing her pacing there startled me. Why didn't you call? Do you know how late it is? Her voice cut sharp, but beneath it was something else. Worry. Fear. I mumbled an apology, head low, and fled to my room. My bed swallowed me, exhaustion tugging me under. For a while, I slept. Then came the sound. A noise pulled me from dreams. Sharp, deliberate. My eyes opened heavy, my throat thick. I turned toward the window and froze. The silver Honda Accord, parked directly below my window, and standing beside it, head tilted back, was the man. His face was clear now, pale, under the moon, his mouth stretched into that same wide smile. Hey Sarah, you up there? Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. The name slammed into me. Sarah, not Sasha, Sarah. He couldn't know that. He couldn't. My chest locked, my door burst open, my mom stormed in, hair mussed but her eyes, sharp, alert, a soldier's eyes. Her face, usually soft, was a mask of grim purpose. Who the hell is that? The words tumbled from me in broken pieces. The car at Walmart, he followed me, asked me to get in. Her jaw hardened. She strode past me, threw the window open, and barked down, "Get the hell off my property before I finish you right. Here." He didn't flinch. He just stared up, smiling, waiting. My mom vanished for a heartbeat, then returned. The gun gleamed in her hand, heavy and certain. She raised it, cocked it, the sound like a steel door slamming shut. I'll count to 3. 1. He blinked, shifted. 2. Her voice cut the air, sharp as a blade. Get out now. This is my only warning. Before she reached 3, he bolted. Tires screamed, burning rubber as the Accord tore away. Silence. Crashed back down. The police came minutes later. Red and blue washed across the walls, radios crackled, notebooks filled. Promises made. Patrols planned. But the air in the house never cleared. Days later, the news broke. A girl a little older than me gone missing. Found dead in a field 5 miles away. When they showed the suspect's face, bile rose in my throat. It was him. The man in the Accord. They arrested him. 15 years, maybe more. Rumors swirled. Bond, money, family pulling strings. Nothing certain. I told myself it was over. But at night, when the world goes quiet, I still hear it. Not just the rumble of his engine, the sharp, triumphant squeal of his tires as he sped from my house, like he'd already claimed something. And sometimes, when the shadows lengthen just right, the glass of my window shows more than my reflection. A silver car idling at the curb, headlights off, waiting. I never imagined that a city could feel alive and dead all at once, but Washington did. The monuments rose like silent sentinels, staring into the sky and into me, judging, watching. I had flown from Florida to see Elena, my fiancée, arriving a week before her family for her graduation celebration. She'd just finished her bachelor's degree, and she wanted us to have time together before the crowd of relatives descended. I had thought it would be romantic, a quiet week of exploration and shared adventure. Instead, I found myself stepping into something I would never forget, a slow-burning terror that began the moment we left the hotel that first morning. Elena's energy was infectious. She laughed at my fascination with the Lincoln Memorial, my questions about the speeches carved into stone, my amateur awe at the Washington Monument. Every now and then, though, a flicker passed across her eyes, brief, subtle, but it was enough to make me uneasy if I allowed myself to notice. But I didn't notice, not yet. We wandered for hours, sneakers clattering against the stone, breaths mingling with the low hum of traffic and the faint, unplaceable smell of something metallic in the air. I felt like a child discovering a world I had only read about, like history had leapt off the pages and into my life. The sun was bright, almost too bright, glaring off the marble and asphalt. Eventually my legs ached and I sank onto a shaded bench while Elena pulled out her phone. "I'll call an Uber," she said. The casualness in her voice calmed me. The van arrived quickly, gray, unmarked, silent, no greeting, no recognition. Just a nod from the driver to Elena. A chill ran down my spine, but I told myself it was nothing. Just nerves, the heat, fatigue. Elena opened the back door and slipped inside. I followed, closing the door behind me, suddenly aware of the unnatural stillness of the air inside the vehicle. The faint scent of something sweet, cloying, rose from the upholstery. My stomach knotted. The driver didn't speak. No hello, no confirmation of our names or destination. Just silence, a rigid mechanical silence that pressed against my chest. The van started moving. Slowly at first, then accelerating, taking corners with a precision that felt almost too practiced. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. Then came the taps on my arm. Elena's eyes met mine, wide and terrified. She didn't speak, but the phone in her hand glowed with the route we were supposed to take. My chest dropped to my knees. We were going the opposite direction. Panic flared, cold and consuming. My mind raced, a frantic carousel of what-ifs and how did we not notice? The city outside seemed distorted, streets stretching longer than they should, shadows shifting unnaturally across buildings. Elena, what? I started, but my voice caught in my throat. The van's interior felt thick, almost viscous, as if the air itself were pressing against my skin. She pointed to the map again, her hands shaking. The photo that popped up on her phone didn't match the man in the driver's seat. He was not our Uber. My stomach lurched, bile rising. I had read stories of tourists disappearing, of strangers in gray vans, but I had always told myself they were cautionary tales, not warnings meant for me. I leaned forward. We need to stop," I said, voice firmer than I felt. "We're not who you think we are." The driver didn't slow, didn't acknowledge me, just stared, dark eyes, catching mine in the rearview mirror. There was intelligence there, yes, but something older, something patient, almost amused. My pulse hammered against my ribcage, each beat screaming at me to move, to escape, to survive. I reached into my pocket, fingers trembling, and drew the small pocket knife I always carried. It was a cold comfort, a talisman against the unknown. Holding the blade near his neck, I forced my voice past the terror. "Stop the van now. I don't know what you want, but I have this and I won't hesitate." The world seemed to pause. The hum of the tires on asphalt faded into silence. The van jerked slightly, brakes squealing, and then it stopped abruptly. The doors flew open. I bolted, Elena at my side, legs like jelly, lungs screaming for air. We ran until the van was a distant gray shadow down the street, tires fading into nothing. Outside, the city was impossibly still, the sunlight harsh, unnatural in its clarity. Elena's hands shook as she fumbled with her phone, connecting to the real Uber. The driver arrived a few minutes later, ordinary, human, normal in a way that made the relief almost painful in its intensity. He listened, nodded, and told us something that made my blood run cold. There had been other cases. Tourists tricked into vans, vanishing, never found. And the man? The gray van? Still out there. That night I could not sleep. Shadows clung to the corners of the hotel room, the ceiling looming above me like it had secrets it refused to share. I kept imagining him behind the wheel, waiting, patient, silent. The van's interior replayed in my mind, every detail magnified. The sticky smell, the gray walls, the dark eyes in the mirror. Every time Elena shifted in her sleep, I flinched. Every honk, every distant rumble outside sent my chest tightening. The next day, we walked the streets cautiously, retracing our steps, noting every gray vehicle, every shadow that seemed too heavy. My mind began to twist the mundane into the sinister. A pigeon taking flight became a signal, a pattern. The hum of the city became a pulse, like a heartbeat syncing with my own, forcing me to acknowledge the fragility of my control. I began to see faces in reflective windows, shadows that didn't belong, movements in alleys that seemed deliberate, patient. Elena tried to laugh it off. "It's over," she said. But I could see the tension behind her eyes. I could see her, watching corners, listening, waiting. Even she felt it. The city was alive, and we were prey. At night, I dreamt of the van sliding silently down streets with no one around. I dreamt of the driver's eyes, impossibly dark, meeting mine. Always, waiting, always patient. I woke with my heart in my throat, convinced I could hear the faint scrape of tires outside, the subtle sigh of a door sliding. I checked locks obsessively, peered down empty hallways, every shadow a potential threat. Days passed. The city's monuments seemed less majestic, more like witnesses, eyes carved in stone, watching our fear. I couldn't tell reality from paranoia. The air itself felt charged, electric, alive with the memory of what we had escaped. Even in broad daylight, every stranger seemed too still, too deliberate. I began avoiding streets, windows, alleys. I could not shake the feeling of being hunted, of the van's eyes following, mapping, waiting. At night, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the city breathe, wondering if it was him or something else entirely. Something older, something that lived in the spaces between fear and reality, feeding on the terror it created. I tried to convince myself it was just a man, but every instinct, every hair on my skin told me otherwise. Elena and I tried to maintain normalcy. We smiled at her family, attended celebrations, made plans. But beneath it all, a quiet panic pulsed through me. Every corner held potential, threat, every reflection a warning. And sometimes when the world was silent, I could almost hear it. The soft, mechanical hum of a van, the dark eyes in the mirror, the patient, unblinking waiting. By the time I returned to Florida, I had changed. I was quieter, sharper, always scanning, always aware. The van, the driver, the city's quiet surveillance, it had followed me home, etched itself into my mind, and I knew I would never be entirely free of it. I no longer trusted strangers, shadows, even daylight. The world had grown thinner, more fragile, and I could feel the patience of whatever it was, lingering at the edges of my vision and the corners of my mind. Even now, I sometimes hear it, tires scraping lightly on asphalt, the soft click of a sliding door, and I know deep down that somewhere the van still waits, patient, silent, watching, and I wonder, in a cold, unshakable certainty, if I will ever be able to escape it. Because once you have felt the eyes in the rearview mirror, once you have been in that van, you are never truly alone again. I always thought Christmas Eve was supposed to feel safe. Safe in a way no other night could. Streets dim and hushed, windows glowing with warm lights, families rushing home with bags of groceries and wrapped boxes. Even if the cold air bit at your lungs, even if the town felt empty, there was always this thread of protection woven through the night. Like the holiday itself would keep anything bad away. That's what I told myself, year after year. But belief is fragile. It only takes one person, one presence to press against it until it shatters. And once it breaks, nothing ever feels the same again. My name is Elena Vargas, 23 years old when it happened. I lived in a nowhere town in southern Arizona called Fairpoint, the kind of place where time felt like it limped along. The neighborhoods all looked the same, sun-faded houses, their paint curling and tired, yards that crunched with dust instead of grass. In summer, the whole place smelled heavy with mesquite, a sweetness that clung to your skin. But in winter, the air turned thin and sharp, carrying nothing but cold asphalt and silence. I worked at ValueMax, a big box retail store where the holiday season was survival of the fittest. Long lines of exhausted parents, children crying over plastic toys, co-workers too burned out to pretend anymore. I'd always prided myself on keeping some kind of spirit alive. My mom used to tell me I had the Christmas sparkle in me, like kindness came easier this time of year. So I clung to that. I said Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays with actual warmth, hoping if I gave enough of it away, maybe I'd feel it myself. That Christmas Eve, the store was supposed to close at 6, but no one leaves when they're told to. People lingered until almost 7, combing shelves for last-minute gifts. By the time the lock slid into place and the overheads dimmed, my feet felt swollen, my throat scraped raw from hours of customer service politeness. I pulled my scarf tighter as I stood in front of the glass doors, staring out at the lot. The sky looked bruised, deep blues bleeding into strips of pink and orange, fading into black at the edges. A drizzle earlier left the asphalt damp, lamps reflecting like smudged halos. Families shuffled to cars, bags swinging from their arms. The air smelled faintly metallic like wet pavement and exhaust, and then I noticed him, a man, mid-40s maybe. Thin frame, narrow shoulders hunched inward. Wire glasses caught the lamp glow as he stood near the far edge of the lot, not near cars or people, just standing, hands sunk deep into his coat. Still. Too still. My brain supplied the most rational explanation, waiting for a ride. But longer I looked, the more wrong it felt. He wasn't restless, he wasn't distracted. He was paused, like the world moved around him, but he refused to move with it. Recognition struck a second later. He'd been at my register around 5:30. His basket held detergent, paper towels, batteries, unremarkable things. I'd rung him up, bagged it all, smiled the way I always did. "Thank you, sir. Have a happy holiday." The memory replayed with a sharp edge. His reaction. The way his head snapped toward me so fast it startled me. Eyes narrowed. His voice, low, clipped, brittle. "What did you just say?" I'd blinked, confused. I said, "Have a happy holiday." He leaned in across the counter, and I caught a sour, acrid breath. His words hissed between teeth. It's Merry Christmas. Not a correction. A command. I remember laughing, weakly trying to soften the tension. Right, Merry Christmas, but his stare didn't break. It latched onto me heavy and unyielding until finally he snatched his bag and walked away. I'd told myself it was nothing. People get weird about little things. It was easier to brush it off than dwell on it. Now, an hour later, there he was. Same man. Same glasses glinting under the lamp, still watching. I felt my stomach knot. My coworker Adam had already left, so I was on my own. Normally, I liked walking the 4 blocks home. It cleared my head, but suddenly the thought of walking under those lamps with his eyes following me felt unbearable. Still, I pushed through the doors. The cold hit me first, then the silence. His gaze stuck to me like a pin on a map. I walked. My sneakers slapped the damp pavement, too loud in the quiet. I told myself not to look back, but fear always finds a way. I glanced over my shoulder. He was moving, measured steps, not rushing, not lingering, just following, 30 feet behind, his pace set to mine. My throat dried, and my heart tripped in my chest. Maybe coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. But when I turned onto Maple Street, he turned. When I crossed at the light, he crossed. 2 blocks later, the lie couldn't hold. I sped up, pulled out my phone, pretending to scroll. The glow lit my face, a mask of calm, but my fingers trembled so hard I nearly dropped it. Behind me, his footsteps kept steady. Slow. Relentless. Not tonight. I whispered. Please. Not Christmas Eve. At the edge of Ridgeway Park, desperation made me cut across the grass. Dew soaked instantly through my shoes, chilling my socks. Maybe he'd stay on the sidewalk. Please let him stay on the sidewalk. But when I turned my head, he was stepping off the curb, slipping into the shadows of the trees. Panic spiked like fire in my chest. Why me? My voice cracked. I picked up speed, walking, then jogging, lungs burning as the cold air scraped my throat raw. The park was a skeleton in winter. Bare branches creaked overhead. Leaves rustled dry beneath my feet, frantic and uneven. The playground loomed, swaying faintly though no wind stirred. Distant lamps flickered, light shrinking as if the darkness pulled it away. And closer, now so close, his breathing. Not just footsteps, breathing. Ragged, heavy, hungry. His voice cut through the dark, jagged and too near. I saw the light in your eyes when you said happy holidays. I froze mid-step. You thought you were safe. His words dripped, sharp and deliberate. I'm here to take that away, to make you pay for your disrespect. I spun, terror flooding me. He was less than 10 feet away, glasses fogged, face twisted with something between rage and devotion. What? What do you want from me? I stammered. His lips peeled back. Sorry doesn't save you. Not when you mock what's sacred. Something inside me snapped. My body chose before my mind did. I ran. The block stretched into nightmare length. Each stride weighted with panic. The air burned through my lungs, sharp and metallic. My ears filled with the sound of his pursuit, shoes slapping, breath rasping, closer, closer. I fumbled with my keys at the door of my building, hands slick with sweat despite the cold. Once. Twice, the key slipped. A sob caught in my throat, then, finally, the lock turned. I shoved inside, slammed the door, chest pressed against the wood. Silence. I slid down the door, back against it, legs trembling so violently they barely held me. My eyes closed. I took a breath. Shaky, shallow, but a breath. For a heartbeat, I let myself believe I was safe. Then, bang. The door jolted violently, rattling in its frame as if he'd thrown his body against it. A scream ripped out of me as I scrambled to my feet, bolting up the stairs 2 at a time, nearly falling. Inside my apartment, I locked everything, deadbolt, chain, every sliding latch I had. I collapsed onto the couch, lungs clawing for air, my entire body shivering. And then, through the thin walls, his voice seeped in. It's Merry Christmas. It's Merry Christmas. It's Merry Christmas. Over and over like a broken hymn. I sat awake until dawn, too paralyzed to move, too shattered to cry. When pale light finally stretched across the blinds, the street outside was empty. He was gone. I never saw him again, not once. But I feel him still. Last week, a young cashier at the grocery store handed me my receipt, smiling. "Happy holidays," he said warmly. My mouth opened. The words froze. Nothing came out. I just nodded, weak and quick, before rushing. Outside, my heart hammering, his voice alive again inside me. It's Merry Christmas, and I know now I'll never say Happy Holidays again. I was 19 years old when it happened, and even now, years later, I still feel the air in my lungs go shallow whenever I think about it. The memory doesn't fade the way people say memories do. It sharpens. It waits. It crawls out at night when the world is too quiet, when my defenses are lowest, and it reminds me that nothing I've built since then has really pushed it away. I can be laughing at dinner with friends, driving to work, or lying next to someone I trust. And out of nowhere I'll feel it, that pulse of dread, that grip in my chest like I'm back there again. Some nights when sleep refuses me, I think maybe I never really left. Back then I lived in one of those rural Oregon towns people speed through on their way to somewhere bigger. A grocery store, a gas station, 2 diners with laminated menus that smelled of grease, and a Domino's where I worked part-time to help pay for community college. That was my life. I made pizzas, folded boxes, and saved every extra dollar for tuition, for the faint dream of a car, for the bills my mom couldn't quite manage alone. We weren't poor enough to draw attention, but we weren't comfortable either. I carried that weight every shift, and every night I walked home along Maple Creek Road because I couldn't afford another option. By daylight, that road was almost beautiful. Tall pines arched overhead, their branches knitted into a loose canopy that let sunlight drip through in shifting patches. Fog curled in the ditches in the morning, and in autumn the air smelled faintly of pine and smoke. But once the sun was gone, the road turned into something else. The woods on either side pressed in close. The quiet wasn't peace, but suffocation. No crickets, no rustle of night creatures. Just silence, heavy and listening. I always felt watched there, though I could never prove it. My mom hated that walk more than I did. She made me carry pepper spray when I first got the job. I'd laughed, but I slipped it in my pocket every shift anyway. It gave me the illusion of safety, if nothing else. That night started like any other. We were slammed at closing, 2 big pickup orders back to back. By the time we scrubbed the counters and killed the ovens, it was nearly 7:40, later than usual. My coworker Maya tugged her hoodie close as we stepped outside. Her boyfriend's truck idled at the curb. She gave me a look I knew too well. "You good walking?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Not my first night." "You should really get a car." She tried to make it sound light, but her eyes stuck on me a little too long, like she wasn't sure I'd make it home. "I'm working on it," I muttered, hoisting my backpack. She gave me a quick wave, climbed into the truck, and left me standing in the dim orange glow of the Domino's sign. Then she was gone. The vending machine outside the grocery store hummed. The gas station lights buzzed like tired insects, and the rest of town was dead silent. Within 10 minutes, I was at the edge of the woods. Maple Creek stretched ahead, a blacktop ribbon swallowed by trees that blotted out the stars. I flicked on my phone light, its beam cutting a narrow cone, through the dark, and stepped forward. The road always felt longer at night. My footsteps crunched against gravel, the sound swallowed fast by the trees. Every now and then a car would pass, headlights cutting white tunnels through the dark, and then vanish, leaving me alone with my heartbeat. I kept my eyes forward, but the quiet pressed in, and my ears strained for anything unusual. Halfway in, it came. Not a shout, not a branch snapping, just a shift. The kind of subtle movement you'd miss if you weren't already wound tight. A darker shadow in the trees seemed to lean, to breathe. Then a sound followed, low and strangled, like someone trying to clear their throat and swallow words at the same time. I stopped cold. My phone shook in my hand, the light quivering across tree trunks. Hello? My voice cracked, too loud against the silence. Something shifted again, closer this time. Then a sound barely above a whisper, nearly swallowed by the air. Hey! The word stopped me more than a shout ever could. I scanned the trees and then I saw him, a figure tall, thin. Just far enough back that the beam of my phone caught only pieces, an outline, a sliver of pale face, the suggestion of arms hanging loose. If he hadn't made a sound, I might have convinced myself he wasn't there at all. My chest tightened. Every nerve screamed to walk faster, to run, but my legs stuck to the asphalt like tar. Do you need something? I forced the words out, hating how weak they sounded. There was a pause. Then, come here. The voice was low, harsh, like gravel pressed through clenched teeth. I can't, I said quickly, my voice too high. I've got to get home. It'll only take a second. The words sharpened, urgency mixed with menace. I need your help. My mom's warning shot through my head like lightning. Don't stop for strangers, especially not at night, especially not in the woods. But the way he said it, pleading, like desperation wrapped around the threat, unraveled me. Just enough to hesitate. 1 minute, I muttered, hating myself. That's all it'll take. I stepped off the asphalt. Gravel crunched under my sneakers, louder than it should have been. My phone light bounced from tree to tree. Never, landing on him fully, only glimpses of dark fabric and the pale smear of skin. He didn't move until I was nearly beside him. Then he raised an arm, pointing deeper into the woods. There, he said softly. Look. I followed his finger. A pit yawned in the ground, wide and black. The edges were too clean to be natural. Someone had dug it. What the hell is that? My voice came out tight. Found it earlier, he whispered. Don't have a light, shine yours. My gut twisted, every instinct screamed wrong. Still, I leaned forward, holding my phone out over the hole. I never saw what lay inside, because he shoved me. The world fell out from under me. I hit hard, ribs cracking, pain across my chest. My knees buckled against damp earth. The ground at the bottom smelled wet, sour. The air was thick, suffocating, with a cold metallic edge that clung to the back of my throat, blood. I groaned, rolled, lifted. The phone. The beam cut across something pale. A body. A girl, my age, maybe younger. Her limbs sprawled awkwardly, skin drained white. Cuts striped her arms, her legs. She was naked, bruises marring her ribs. Her hair stuck to her cheek with dried blood. The smell hit me full then. The damp, spongy earth, the iron tang of blood, and something else, sour-sweet. The faint beginning of decay. My stomach lurched, I gagged, scrambled backward, the phone shaking in my hand. The light slid across her face, frozen in an unfinished scream. Her eyes half open, glassy. My breath stuttered. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? Above, his shadow leaned across the lip of the pit. He didn't answer. I clawed at the dirt wall, slipping. My fingernails ripped, mud packing under them. The more I tried, the more the walls gave way, dumping clods of wet earth onto me. Each time I slid down, I landed too close to her. The smell wrapped tighter. My thoughts spun wild. I imagined her hand twitching. I imagined her lips moving. I couldn't stop looking at her even though every nerve screamed not to. Minutes blurred, into forever. My chest heaved. My phone battery dipped lower. The beam weakened. And still he stood above. Silent. Watching. Finally, claw by claw, I pulled myself up far enough to grab a root. I hauled, half sobbing, scraping skin from my arms, and tumbled out. I looked up. The tree line was empty. He was gone, but not entirely. Somewhere deeper in the woods came a sound, slow, rhythmic, Metal against dirt, a shovel scraping, then a heavier drag, like something large being pulled across leaves. He wasn't running, he wasn't chasing, he was preparing. My legs staggered into a run back toward the road. My breath tore my throat raw. Every second I expected a hand to close around me. When I reached home, I collapsed against the door. Dirt and sweat smeared across my face. My chest burned. I didn't call the cops. I didn't tell my parents. I called Ryan, my closest friend. Through gasps, I told him I'd seen something I couldn't unsee. I begged him never to bring it up again. Days passed. I checked the news, desperate. No missing girl, no body, no mention of anything. It was like it had never happened, but I know what I saw. I know what I smelled, what I touched when I clawed at that dirt. And I know he's still out there. Sometimes, walking past Maple Creek in daylight, I hear it again. The scrape of metal, the drag of something heavy. And I wonder how many pits wait hidden under those trees, and how many voices will hear that whisper in the dark before they realize too late that answering it is the last mistake they'll ever make.